Good evening, everyone. It's nice to see such a full house. I'm going to call the Whitemarsh Township Board of Supervisors meeting to order. It's 6:32. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm going to turn it over to Fran McCusker for his final reading of the news.
The news. Thank you, JC. Tonight's announcements. The season's leaf collection program began on October 27th and will end tomorrow, December 12th. The leaves collected will be grinded up to provide mulch in the spring for residents. Many thanks to Jack Fields and the Public Works employees for their effort to keep the streets clear of leaves. Please remember to bag your leaves and place with your yard waste on Mondays from here on out. Spring Mill and Barron Hill Fire Companies will have a Hanukkah parade through the neighborhoods on Tuesday, December 16th, starting at 5:30. In addition, both companies will have their Santa run on Saturday, December 20th, starting at 10 a.m. The 9th annual Martin Luther King Clothing Drive will begin January 14th through January 19th at Cedar Grove Barn as the collection site. As a reminder, the township offices will be closed on Thursday, December 25th and Thursday, January 1st to observe the holidays. And finally, as this is our last meeting of 2025, the Board of Supervisors would like to wish everyone a safe, happy, and healthy holiday season. Thank you.
Thank you, Fran. I'm going to go ahead now and call Rebecca Werner up. She has some awards to present to the Whitemarsh Ambulance Company.
Hello, and thank you. In the course of providing public safety and emergency medical service, moments arise that test the skills, professionalism, and teamwork of first responders. The following commendations highlight 5 separate incidents in which personnel from EMS, fire, police, public works, and air medical service demonstrate exceptional collaboration, communication, and problem solving under challenging circumstances. From critical motor vehicle accidents to severe traumatic injuries to complex rescue operations and high-stakes helicopter crash management, these incidents showcase how coordinated efforts across multiple agencies directly contribute to positive patient outcomes and safety of our community. These commendations honor the dedication, adaptability, interagency cooperation that form the foundation of effective emergency response. If everybody who was involved in the motor vehicle accident on Bethlehem Pike with seizures could come forward, that's Barron Hill Fire Company, Flowertown Fire Company, and paramedic William Cagney and EMT Kim Lynette. Yeah? Come on. Also, Whitemarsh Ambulance will also be in the Hanukkah parade too. Just throwing it out there. Yeah, you're gonna go up the front. Everybody up the front. We're gonna take some pictures. Everybody smile. You look good. Thank you. All right. On February 15th, 2025, EMS crew members worked alongside police and fire personnel, demonstrating exceptional professionalism and coordinated emergency response during a motor vehicle accident that was caused by a sudden seizure. Upon arrival, responders were faced with critically injured patient and a scene that required rapid assessment and controlled teamwork. The EMS crew delivered swift, focused medical care while seamlessly integrating with fire and police efforts to secure the scene. Through clear communication, timely decision-making, and advanced clinical intervention, responders stabilized the patient and facilitated rapid air transport via PennStar to Penn Presby Hospital. Their combined actions directly contributed to positive outcome and represent the highest standards of interagency cooperation and dedication to life preservation. We're going to give you your commendations. Thank you all. '45 and 29 stay up there. You're good. Flower Town. 45 you go up. Switch. Flower Town out, 45 in. Keep it going, guys.
Yeah, that's like this one.
Gonna go up, head down. Joining the fire departments, I'd like to call up Medic Luna Schaffern, Medic McKenna Burkhart, Captain Anna Morgan, EMT Joe Paldino, Deputy Chief Kristen Kovacs. Fire Marshal. Fire Marshal, you want to go up there? You want to go up there for PD? Thank you, guys. Hey, Mike. Come on, George. God. You're fine. All right. On February 28th, 2025, Whitemarsh Township witnessed a remarkable display of interagency coordination during a complex rescue involving one patient who became pinned from the knees down while cutting trees. What began as a routine activity turned into a highly technical emergency that demanded immediate, well-orchestrated action from every responding unit. EMS crews worked seamlessly along fire, police, public works personnel to navigate a challenging and physically intensive extrication. Responders were met with unstable ground, heavy timber, and a constant risk of complications associated with prolonged entrapment, including the potential development of crush syndrome. Despite these obstacles, the team contributed vital expertise with stabilizing the surrounding area and methodically removing the debris to provide continuous medical assessment and care throughout the entire operation. This incident required not only strength and technical skill, but also calm communication, adaptability, and unwavering focus on the patient's safety. Through disciplined teamwork and coordinated strategy, responders achieved a safe and efficient extrication, allowed for rapid transfer and the patient to Penn Star with subsequent transport to Penn Presbyterian Hospital. The professionalism demonstrated during this call exemplifies the very best of multi-agency public safety response. It stands as a powerful reminder that EMS, fire, police, and public works operate as one unified team, lives are protected, and the outcomes are dramatically improved. Congratulations, guys. Fire departments, you can sit down, but you're going to have to come back up, so don't get comfy. Captain Anna Morgan, if you can stay up. Paramedic Luna Schaffern, and EMT Edmund Curry, if you. The order could have been better, I admit. I know, we're going to make a spectacle of it. Okay. On May 5th, 2025, EMS crews responded to one of the most challenging and visually traumatic medical emergencies, a severe head injury that involved extensive scalp trauma suffered by their female patient. Despite the intense nature of the injury and the potential for emotional overwhelm, the crew maintained unwavering composure, clear communication, and clinical precision. They rapidly controlled the active bleeding, protected the airway, and provided calm reassurance, all while preparing the patient for transfer. Their ability to remain steady, focused, and compassionate under such distressing circumstances ensured that the critical interventions were delivered without delay and that the patient received the highest level of care during the transport to Abington Memorial Hospital. Their conduct reflects exceptional professionalism and resilience required of all EMS providers in the face of severe trauma. Congratulations, guys. If representation from the police and from 45 can come up. Along with Deputy Chief Kristen Kovacs and EMT Joe Sermania, who is not with us tonight. We can put a chair there if you want. We got you. All right. On May 27, 2025, police officers and EMS personnel demonstrated exemplary coordination and life-saving initiative in their response to a self-inflicted stab wound that was suffered by a male patient. The police personnel arrived first and immediately recognized the need for rapid hemorrhage and airway control, quickly applying a chest seal that played a critical role in preserving the patient's ability to survive until EMS arrival. EMS crew members then assumed care, delivering focused trauma management, continuous monitoring, and rapid stabilization while preparing the patient for air transport. Their ability to integrate with police and fire intervention with advanced EMS trauma care allowed for an efficient, uninterrupted treatment and rapid coordination with the fire departments and Penn Star for air medical transport to Penn Presbyterian Hospital. This seamless partnership highlights the essential cooperation between law enforcement, fire, and EMS in life-threatening encounters and is a testament to the responders' dedication and skill. You can go back now. The rest of the police can go up here for this one too. Just keep going up. Go up. Police. You guys. Yep, go up. Up here. Come on, Mike. Go. Yes. This is total collaboration, guys. This is Joe Pellegrino. Yep. Yep. Along with our fire departments and our police, we would like Deputy Chief Kristen Kovacs, Assistant Chief Maria Pierce, who is refusing to come up, EMT Joe Paldino, EMT Lindsay Proctor, and I think the other people are not with us right now. So, Lindsay, where's she at? Okay, can't see you, Lindsay. All right, there you are. Okay. Okay. On May 19th, 2025, fire, EMS, police, and emergency management. Oh, I'm sorry, emergency management. Go up there. Okay, good. All right. They all came together under unified command to manage a chaotic and high-risk aftermath of a helicopter crash. The incident demanded rapid, thoughtful organization, constant communication, and an anticipatory approach to multiple evolving hazards. Along with transporting the 3 medevac crew members, EMS personnel provided medical readiness throughout the event, ensuring both responders and potential victims had immediate access to emergency care. Fire, police, and emergency management coordinated hazard control, scene stabilization, and community protection while taking vital operational insight regarding aircraft components such as fuel considerations and aviation safety. We thank you guys for all the effort in this joint collaboration. All emergency services join them. Through all these events, the responders in front of you demonstrated exceptional calm under pressure, innovative problem solving, and unwavering commitment to safety of the community and their fellow responders. Their actions during these complex incidents stand as a model of interagency excellence. There is so often a focus on negativity and the issues that we face. I truly appreciate you giving us the opportunity to highlight some of the positive actions and outstanding work and teamwork from today. Recognizing the dedication and collaboration of our personnel is meaningful and is important that these moments receive the spotlight they deserve. Thank you again for all of your support.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
It's like my nightmare.
Chief Werner,
Yes.
thank you so much for that presentation. I want to thank you and your team for all that you do for Whitemarsh, and I want to thank all of you in emergency services. And as you're walking out, I just want to give you all one more round of applause because you are the backbone of our community. All right. Moving on to approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the Board of Supervisors meeting minutes from November 13th?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. I'm going to skip around just a little bit. We're going to go over to motions. Do I have a motion approving the appointment of Angela Madel-Long as the new Finance Director for Whitemarsh Township?
So moved.
Second.
I want to welcome Angela to the Whitemarsh community. You're more than welcome to come up. She's in the room with us tonight, and we are really excited to have her. We've had a long process, and it was worth the wait. We are thrilled to welcome you. I know Terry's excited. I know Craig is excited. So you are more than welcome to come up and say hello.
Thank you. I just want to very nice to meet you. Welcome. Meet you. Meet you. Welcome. Congrats.
Congratulations. Welcome, Angela. Looking forward to it.
I am very excited about this opportunity. I am ready to get started. I'm just very appreciative to be here and grateful to be a part of Whitemarsh.
Thank you, Angela. We are thrilled to have you. And I believe you're starting January 5th?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Very much looking forward to it.
Me too.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Let's give Angela a round of applause. All right, we're going to go back to our regular agenda. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing to consider a liquor license transfer to 424 South Bethlehem Pike, Fort Washington, PA?
So moved.
Second.
I'm going to turn this over to John Molko.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At this time, we're going to commence with this public hearing on a liquor license transfer application by the applicant Fineline Fort Washington LLC to transfer a restaurant license to the premises located 424 South Bethlehem Pike, Fort Washington, PA, here in the township. And before I turn it over to the applicant's attorney, we have two exhibits we would mark for this hearing. First, which will be Board Exhibit 1, is the licensee application letter request for this hearing and the request for the transfer that was received by the township for this intermunicipal transfer. And Board Exhibit 2 will be the proof of publication providing the required public notice for tonight's public hearing, which was published in the Times-Herald newspaper on November 27th and December 4th, 2025. The purpose of this hearing is to generally receive comments and recommendations from interested individuals residing in the township concerning the intent to transfer the license to Whitemarsh Township. The applicant today is represented by Attorney Andrew Stoll from Fox Rothschild. What we'll do is just have him or his client provide a little information to the board related to what is being proposed for this location. We'll be able to see if the board has any questions. We'll see if there's any public comment, and at that point in time, there's a resolution then for this board to consider, which would grant the township, local authorities permission to transfer that license in. Afterwards, they then still have to go through the Liquor Control Board to comply with all the rest of their process for their liquor license permits. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Stoll.
Thank you, Mr. Walko. Good evening, everyone. I'm Andrew Stoll on behalf of the applicant. Just by way of a little background, the applicant is in the business of fine dining and different types of restaurants. They've been affiliated, owning, and operating restaurants in the area, including Bridget's, Jasper's Backyard, The Fort, Teterra, Casey's Alley, and similar situated restaurants. What's actually before you is the transfer of a liquor license. It's part of the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board process. So you can go within the county, but if you go from one municipality to another, the PA Liquor Control Board requires that there be a quote-unquote acceptance of some kind by the municipality, so be it by ordinance or resolution. So the property that we're looking to transfer the license and use it at is 424 South Bethlehem Pike. I understand it's previously used as Cantina Felice, which has been vacant for not being used for about 2 years. What the applicant's proposing is some type of higher end white tablecloth, special occasion fine dining. There's no changes to the site. It's really just plug and play. It's a reputable business owner, a reputable restaurant owner who's excited to come to your township and be a part of the community. So one of the exhibits, the board exhibits, is the letter application, which is being shown right now, dated October 22nd, 2025. It has the gist of how the property would be used, which I just described, the hours of operation, and things like that. So that's essentially what's before you. I'm happy to answer any questions. With me here tonight is a representative of the applicant to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions?
I'm good.
Good.
And with that, if the board has no questions, we'll turn it over to the public to see if the public has any questions or comments related to this request. Hearing and seeing none, we will close this public hearing, and now this resolution is properly before this board for action. And again, that being a resolution to approve the inter-municipal liquor license transfer.
Thank you. Mr. McAnally, can you please call the roll?
Yes. Ms. Terrain?
Yes.
Ms. Moy?
Yes.
Mr. McCusker?
Yes.
Chair Toll?
Yes. Motion carries. Good luck.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Welcome.
Moving down to board discussion items. All right, before we move into the board discussion items, I'm just going to read a prepared statement. The Board of Supervisors' consideration of the proposed redevelopment of the former David's Bridal property at 1001 Washington Street began in 2023 when High Top filed plans for 49, now 46, townhomes. The plans were reviewed in normal course, and it was determined that High Top needed a revision to the current floodway line to reasonably build on the property. High Top applied to FEMA for a letter of map revision, or LOMAR, that would move the floodway line toward the Schuylkill River and allow the redevelopment of the property to be feasible. FEMA granted the LOMAR, but did not publish notice of the LOMAR in the Pennsylvania Bulletin, which is required to formally effectuate the LOMAR. Due to a lack of internal communication between the Board of Supervisors and the Township Administration, a letter was sent from the Township to FEMA stating the Township's opposition to the LOMAR. This action was not authorized by a vote of the Board of Supervisors in public session and should not have occurred. Following receipt of the Township's letter, FEMA reversed its determination regarding the LOMAR and refused to issue the LOMAR. As a result of FEMA reversing its original determination on the LOMAR, High Top filed a writ of summons in the Court of Common Pleas of Montgomery County. The writ of summons formally starts a lawsuit, but it is not a complaint that requires a response within a specific period of time. With the Township now in litigation with High Top, the Board has met an executive session with its solicitor to discuss settlement of the suit. The recommendation of council, agreed to by a majority of the Board of Supervisors, is to enter into a settlement agreement with High Top that would result in the approval of High Top's preliminary plan and the mailing of a letter from the township to FEMA stating that the township does not oppose the LOMAR. In exchange, High Top releases the township from liability for any actions it took that may have been in violation of the law and High Top's rights as a property owner. The Board of Supervisors takes the lack of internal communication that resulted in the mailing of the LOMAR opposition letter very seriously and has already taken internal measures to prevent something like this from happening again. However, at the recommendation of council, the board is taking the prudent path of settling the current litigation before incurring the costs and uncertainty of litigation, and the approval of High Top's plans and the mailing of the township does not oppose the LOMAR letter to FEMA are the actions the board has agreed to take to prevent litigation from proceeding. High Top must still obtain FEMA's approval of the LOMAR in order to move forward with its project. Thus, we will move on to consider a settlement agreement with High Top. Do I have a motion to approve executing a settlement agreement between HT 1001 Washington Street LLC and Whitemarsh Township for property located at 1001 Washington Street, Conshohocken?
So moved.
Second.
At this time, I'm going to turn it over to John Walco. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That was an excellent summary of the, I think, the most significant points of the settlement agreement and the background and the purpose of that settlement agreement, as you so stated. But to reiterate, this would be a settlement agreement with High Top for that property at 1001 Washington Street that ultimately would result in the township's requirement to approve the land development plan that's on the agenda later for tonight for 46 townhouses that I believe we'll still have a look at, along with all of the waivers that have been requested for that plan. In addition, it would require the township, I believe within 10 days of execution, to issue a letter to FEMA stating that they are in not opposition of the letter of map amendment for the floodplain line. Apart from that, it would be filed and it would terminate the litigation that has been commenced against the township. This is for a preliminary plan review, so there would be a requirement to then submit for a final plan review where an independent engineer will make sure that the final plan is then in line with the township's final plan requirements. And at that point in time, it would be back before this board for final plan approval. The law wouldn't require the board to take back anything, nor would the settlement agreement. But the law wouldn't then allow you to take a second bite at that because of the previously approved then preliminary plan approval. So it would then be back before this board. They do have to, as you said, Madam Chair, comply and obtain all of their outside agency approvals, permits, things that are outside of the township's control. They still have to go through the process of making sure that FEMA is going to approve that a floodplain line removal. That isn't something that we can compel them to do. So they still have their requirements, but our requirement under the settlement agreement would be to approve the plan as presented, which was recently amended to address some of the concerns for the waivers, and I believe our township engineer might comment on those as well. So the approving of the plan, the waivers, and then taking the steps to ensure that the plan moves forward towards completion.
Thank you, John. Krista, did you want to say anything about the waivers?
Sure. With regard to two of the waivers, I had originally not recommended granting of those waivers. They were related to the jog in Washington Street. The ordinance requires the radius of that jog to be 150 feet. They had it at 40 feet. They've since revised the plan to provide 55 feet, which, although it doesn't meet the township requirement, it does meet the AASHTO requirement for a speed limit of 15 miles per hour. So I no longer object to those two waivers, and that was 105.33 and 105.37. 33B.
Thank you, Krista. Do I have any board comment?
Good.
Nope. Do I have any public comment? Is there anyone online, Craig?
There's people online, no one with a hand up, though.
All righty. Given that, Mr. McAnally, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Ms. Tureen?
Yes.
Ms. Moy?
Yes.
Mr. McCusker?
Yes.
Chair Toll?
Yes. Motion carries. I'm going to move down to, do I have a motion to adopt Resolution 2025-25, granting conditional preliminary major land development approval for SLD 07-23, a land development proposal for 46 townhouses by HT 1001 Washington Street LLC, located at 1001 Washington Street in Conshohocken?
So moved.
Second.
I'm going to turn it over to Charlie Guttenplan.
Thank you. As you've heard, this is a plan for 46 townhouses on the former David's Bridal property. It has been reviewed several times by the Planning Commission, and I think one of the key features of this is that it will extend Washington Street from its current terminus at the end of 901 Washington Street, River Place, to link up with Lee Street and link up with Station Avenue to form a continuous roadway and to provide a much safer street pattern. Right now, Washington Street is a very long cul-de-sac that just ends. It's not even a cul-de-sac, it's just dead ends at David's Bridal. The other feature of note is that there would be a kayak launch with a number of public parking spaces that would be available to the public at the eastern end of the site, right along at the edge of the river. Again, it's 46 townhouses. It's been through the zoning hearing board in May of 2024. It most recently had an extension of that decision to November 11th of 2026. So during that time, it would provide an opportunity for the applicant to continue to go through the land development process, get preliminary, get final approval, and then eventually record the plans and begin to build.
Thank you, Charlie. Is there any board comment?
Good.
No.
Is there any public comment? Come on up, Tom.
Good evening, everyone. First off, Fran, thanks so much for your service on the board for the last 8 years. It's been a pleasure getting to know you and working with you on certain things in the township, so thank you very much for that.
Thanks, Tom.
I guess I want to make sure that the board understands that this area is really prone to a lot of flooding, and everybody knows that at some point or another, those townhouses are going to flood, particularly the ones that are closest to the Schuylkill River there. In fact, during one of the hurricanes, the flooding was up as high as that railroad shed that's there where the people can stand under when the train comes, you know. So, I think these people could be displaced from their houses for a significant period of time due to the flooding because, if the air conditioning systems and HVAC systems and the electrical boxes on the ground floor in the garages, and that gets destroyed, those places could be unlivable for a certain period of time. So I think as good neighbors, why would we do certain this kind of a thing to people that we know are going to be moving into our township? And typically, my understanding of variances are allowed when there's not going to be any problem with the safety of the people that are going to be living there or the safety of the township. There's a lot of safety issues here. Not only to the residents because of the flooding, but what about EMT personnel that have to get in and out of there? My understanding is that some of these streets aren't large enough for fire trucks and emergency vehicles to kind of go in, turn around and come back out without having to do a 3 or 4 point turn in order to be able to do that. So I'm very concerned about that. I'm also concerned about the density. 3.6 acres of ground with 46 townhouses. There's not going to be much extra room for anything in that space. So what's going to happen to, is there going to be studies done on the riverbank to make sure that the riverbank is going to be able to hold the weight of those houses? I mean, these are all things that we have to understand. And I guess lastly, I would say, I don't understand, from me being outside, not looking in, but how this thing got this far. With all the variances that the developer has to get in order to build this thing. I don't get why we even have zoning regulations. Why not just ask the builder, and then we just say, okay, it meets with our requirements, or question it. I mean, there's so many variances to this thing that it just doesn't make sense to me. And the Montgomery County Planning Commission didn't want this, and our Planning Commission also voted against it unanimously. So for those reasons, I don't know why the Board of Supervisors would even entertain a plan like this, given all of the risks associated with it. Thanks.
Thank you for your comment. Are there any other public comments? This person had their hand up first. I'll get to you next. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Todd Giesland, and I live at Fort River Road. I'm a resident, but I'm also a risk management specialist. I hold an MBA in sustainability, and I spent years working with city councils and chambers of commerce, specifically to develop risk toolkits for businesses facing natural weather events. My job was to look at data to predict where businesses would fail due to climate risks. I'm standing here telling you this project fits every criteria of a future failure. We do not have to guess what happens when we build townhomes on the banks of the Schuylkill based on engineering solutions. We just have to look downriver to Manayunk and Venice Island. During Hurricane Ida in 2021, those safe developments were underwater. Residents lost their cars, their first floors were destroyed, and first responders had to risk their lives to evacuate them. The river does not care about a zoning variance. It does not care about a settlement agreement. It will reclaim that land again, and when it does, if you approve this project tonight, the moral and financial liability will sit with this board. The developer is asking you to settle and approve this plan based on a letter of map revision and current flood maps. But any risk manager knows that flood maps look backward at historical averages. They do not account for the acceleration of frequency we are seeing worldwide. The probability of severe flooding is not a statistic, it is increasing. The 100-year flood is now happening every 10 years. Like I said, look at what happened in Manayunk in 2021. If you approve this project based on a map that is already obsolete, you aren't ignoring the Planning Commission, you are ignoring the clear mathematical trend of the river. I understand there's a proposed settlement agreement on the agenda. This suggests the township wants to avoid the risk of a lawsuit from the developer. But you really need to weigh that against the much larger liability of building a high-density housing in a zone we all know will flood. When the water comes back and the data proves it will, those residences will lose their homes or their lives. The township's signature on the agreement will be the evidence that you knowingly put them in harm's way. The developer will be gone. The sales team will be gone. You, the board, will be left holding the bag. You have a unanimous no from your Planning Commission, you have a FEMA letter that has not been approved, and you have the clear data on increasing flood risks. Do not gamble on a map revision that hasn't happened. Vote no on the settlement and no on the waivers. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
My name is Corinne Dieterle. I've lived in Whitemarsh for 45 years. I live on Barron Hill Road. 2021, during Ida, my dear friends and neighbors of more than 30 years had to be evacuated from their home by boat. And they're on much higher ground than David's Bridle. Their house sat at the intersection of Barron Hill, Cedar Grove, and Hector Street. I rode out of the Whitemarsh Boat Club for more than a year. Twice we were flooded to the point where not only were our docks lifted and twisted and no one could use the boat club, but we had to bring in bulldozers to remove mud that was as much as a foot high throughout the parking lot. I've walked down with my kids over the years and watched the rain flooding over the railroad tracks and the trains not able to run. I mean, this makes no common sense for the builder as well. I don't understand why they would even want to do this. So I hope that as this proceeds, common sense will prevail, and we will not build this project.
Thank you for your comment. Is there any more public comment? Come on up.
Sidel Zove, Harts Ridge Road. Most of the people following this project agree that 46 townhouses is far too many units for this parcel, wedged between SEPTA's railroad tracks, the Schuylkill River, and the Spring Mill Creek. And everyone is aware of the regular and significant flooding that has consistently damaged property and left a sea of mud that shuts down SEPTA's Norristown commuter line. But how did we get to this juncture? Let's start with the Zoning Hearing Board. Its decision to grant all of the required variances undermines the integrity of the township zoning code and sets an unwise precedent. Among the most disconcerting issues are allowing narrow sidewalks and the absence of a green verge between the street and the sidewalk, as well as the narrow public trail, a mere 7 feet wide, where the code requires 10 feet. There's also the issue of the materials that will be used to construct the trail, the public trail. Who will be responsible for repairing or replacing the public trail when it fails? And it will fail as a result of the river overflowing the banks. Who will be responsible for covering the costs associated with such repairs? And addressing this should be made a condition of any approval. Who will take responsibility and who will pay for trail repair and replacement? The decision of the Shade Tree Commission to recommend the requested exceptions to Chapter 55 requirements, thereby allowing far too many tree removals and too many inappropriate substitutions, stands as yet another example of whittling away at our code, as well as at the vision set forth in the recent comprehensive plan update. Similarly, the decision of the Board of Supervisors to grant a long list of land development waivers for the adjacent development at 901 Washington Street set the scene for this and other projects to request so-called equal treatment, despite the significant differences in topography and other site details. More generally, the opening of Washington Street to two-way through traffic stands in stark contrast to the recommendations and findings set forth in the Spring Mill multimodal plan, which this Board of Supervisors adopted after months of public participation and discussion. The roadway from Lee Street to Station Avenue should be closed to through traffic, but still available for emergency services. Despite the consistent and multiple comments raised by the township engineer, the developer has yet to confer with SEPTA regarding access and public safety concerns. SEPTA's 2 pages of comments dated December 10th, 2024 remain unanswered, as confirmed this week by its manager of project and planning coordination.
So you've reached the 3-minute maximum. So
I thought it was 5 minutes.
I'm looking at the public participation information and it says 3. I did not give you your 1 minute remaining, but I wanted to make you aware. So just some.
May I have additional time? Thank you. I appreciate that very much. We must not ignore the flooding. Regardless of the outcome of the ongoing negotiations with FEMA, the township declined to concur with the developer's technical data and did not support the application for the shift the floodway line closer to the river. As has been said before, the river will not adhere to the lines drawn on a map, and it will find its way up over the riverbanks, through the parking lots and grade-level garages, and over the railroad tracks. And then there is the total disregard for the history of the site and the historic building still standing at the northern end of the site, the Moorhead Clay Works, which was constructed in 1869 and replaced an earlier structure that has succumbed to fire. A June 5th, 2025 letter to the developer issued by the Pennsylvania State Historic Preservation Office requested more information on the former Moorhead Clayworks Industrial Complex, including a narrative and historic maps, such as Sanborn maps. But as of December 4th, the manager of Environmental Review Division at the State Historic Preservation Office reports there has been no response. Interestingly, the minutes of the January 23rd, 2024 Planning Commission meeting include the following details in response to a sketch plan review. And I'm quoting, Mr. Kostick, chair of the Planning Commission, noted the historic aspect of the building is of interest and the Planning Commission would like to hear about it. Ms. Glantz Patchen added that maybe a plaque or marker that has the history would be appropriate. Mr. Lewis said they will look into it and update the Planning Commission on what they found. There's plenty to be found. And certainly there should be some kind of commemoration, a plaque at the site with information and a QR code that links to additional information. More recently, on November 19th, the Whitemarsh Planning Commission voted unanimously to not recommend the current plan and not recommend any of the waivers. And let's not ignore the major concerns raised by the Montgomery County Planning Commission in its review. Of note are the safety issues at the Washington Street and Station Avenue crossing, which will be compounded by allowing perpendicular parking that requires vehicles to back out into the newly improved Washington Street. In conclusion, I would say this project, as currently configured, does not reflect well upon the township's commitment to its comprehensive plan, to its zoning code, and not to its tree protection standards. Our community deserves better. Future generations deserve better. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you for your comment. Is there any other public comment? Steve, come on up.
Yes, I'm Gordon Giesland. I live at 4 River Road. This whole thing, you've got some intelligent people here who are making these comments. These are not just stoop-niggles. These are people with a lot of intelligence, and you take none of them, it seems like, into consideration. I don't quite understand that. And your job is to protect people, protect the citizens of the township. And this is not providing protection for the city, the township. When you open Washington Street, for instance, you've now increased the traffic, and when you put this project in there with 46 townhouses, you've also increased the traffic. It's going to be bedlam, plus you have commuters coming in there. I mean, this is just a recipe for a lot of problems, accidents and stuff. And it doesn't seem like you're concerned about that at all. And I just don't know who benefits here. We know the developer's going to benefit. He's going to make several $1 million, and they'll close it up and go on with their money. But the township, they get more taxes, I guess. The tax base is increased. You get the money from fees. So I guess that's what you benefit from. But what about the citizens, people who live here? What is their benefit? They're not getting much of any benefit. I really think you should listen to these people. And the whole thing, with the approvals, with the variances, it was all decided in the back room. Everybody came out and it was immediately approved. So there's very little transparency. Why did they prove it in the back room and not be more open? So I really think this is a gross mistake, and I'm sorry to see you all do this to the citizens. So that's about all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Steve?
Steve Kaufman, Harts Ridge Road. This is really a distressing development. I'm going to go into that in a second based on one perspective, which is compliance with Chapter 55, Shade Tree Ordinance. But before I get to that, I just do want to say that I'm sure this is not a happy day for the Board of Supervisors, and that it's too bad that this settlement seems to be necessary, because it was an act of wisdom for the township not to endorse the LUMA request. And I wish it had been possible for the Board of Supervisors to stand by that. And I also would just like to say, in a very broad general sense, that there is a positive wave of sort of goodwill, good vibes in the township staff, and that I hope that that continues, and that we don't have people getting deeply blamed. And I may be misconstruing, J.C., what you read, because I'm sure it was written by lawyers, but I found that distressing also on that ground. In terms of the shade tree ordinance, I am sort of a shade tree junkie and go to all the meetings. And at the, I guess this was at an August meeting, and the shade tree folks, commissioners, were very unhappy. They accepted a bunch of waivers which were extraordinary and gutted the ordinance. And one of the most amazing ones is that, as a result of all that, there is going to be a fee in lieu paid to the township for about $100,000, which is a measurement of how far off of the ordinance this plan is. That represents about 101 or 2 trees. It actually was going to be bigger, but the shade tree backed off, and anyway, it was going to be about 130,000. But that's just historic. Actually, that money will do some good, but it just shows the degree of unhappiness. And the Shade Tree Commission also, at the next meeting, insisted that its minutes be changed so that it was really clear that the Shade Tree Commission was really unhappy and felt that they had had a mess thrown at them by the zoning board, and that they were sort of blocked in and couldn't do anything. I'm not sure that's quite true about being blocked in, but it was a very unhappy group of people. The other thing I want to throw in, though, is that in terms of goodwill and consistency, and I'm losing my words here, there are 2 things afoot in the township: the responsibility of the Board of Supervisors, one of which is a real attempt to appoint good people to the zoning board. And that's been reflected in meetings and in votes. So you guys are nibbling away at that issue, long-known issue. The other thing is that, as you all know, that the county has been hired to lead the planning commission and interested outsiders such as myself in looking at the zoning code. And one of the issues is, what can we do about the floodplain ordinance? And the narrative to that, which was presented to the Planning Commission, says we have a lot of people who are very unhappy, but a lot of this goes back to the weakness of the floodplain ordinance, and I don't know how much that can be strengthened under the law, but the township is going to look at that as a part of a process that was initiated by the Board of Supervisors. So I just wanted to say that clearly you folks are about institutional change. It's slow. It's too bad that things didn't work out better in this situation.
Thank you, Steve. I realize there are more people that want to speak. I'm going to hold you each to the 3-minute limit. I just want to refer to the agenda. At the end of the agenda, it says it lists the 3-minute limit. So I just want to keep that in mind for future meetings as well. Who also has public comment? I'm going to go with this gentleman in the back.
Joe Doherty, River Road. I am a lifelong resident of Whitemarsh Township.
So I'm all for responsible development within and outside the township. This is not one of them. This development is irresponsible. Knowingly to allow houses to be built where we know it's going to flood, regardless of the lines on the paper. It floods whenever there's a large storm. David's Bridal knew it was going to flood again. They installed flood doors at all their entrances. So we know it's going to flood. We're putting future township residents at risk by allowing them to live where it's going to flood. We're putting EMTs and our first responders at risk, as was said before. We're putting all of the people who use the Schuylkill River Trail at risk. I'm a daily user of the Schuylkill River Trail, and I watch people drive across Lee and Station Avenue without looking up. As soon as those gates go up and that train goes by, they're off. This development has no stop signs at the entrance or the exit from the development. As far as the S-turn in Washington Avenue, that could be easily solved by a more sweeping gradual turn to connect. But that would mean losing some houses. Actually, I looked at it, it would mean losing one house. And we could have a safer Washington Avenue, or street, sorry. Been to plenty of zoning meetings about this. I've heard all of the residents oppose this development. And so far, only the Planning Commission has stepped up and taken responsibility for the township residents in not recommending this irresponsible development.
1 minute left.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Deb, come on up.
Deborah Harris, Pilgrim Road. The Spring Mill multimodal and land use study that the township paid for and that I volunteered to be on made recommendations that were accepted by the Board of Supervisors and set the current zoning rules in this area. There were two key points. One, to allow emergency egress and emergency vehicle access to Washington Street. Washington Street should be widened to Lee Street. Absolutely necessary, no disagreements there. We need to be able to get emergency people in and off of Washington. To enhance public safety, Station Avenue must get significant traffic calming measures. Station Avenue is used by pedestrians and bicyclists to access the Schuylkill River Trail and the Spring Mill train station. It crosses the heavily used Schuylkill River Trail with pedestrians and bicyclists there. Cars frequently exceed speed limits. There's a blind curve at the Station Avenue rounds the commercial buildings there. The new developments, the completion of the Riverside Trail, the boat launch, and the nearby Miracle Nature Trail will only increase the number of pedestrians and bicycle traffic. Their safety must be a priority for the township here. The current plan has Washington Street being widened from Lee Street to Station Avenue. This violates the entire spirit of the Spring Mill study recommendations and vastly increases the danger to pedestrians and bicyclists. The proposal to widen Washington Street from Lee Street to Station Avenue didn't come from the developer, but from the township. At the last Planning Commission meeting, the township representatives were asked why they made this recommendation. The answer given was to improve emergency response time. This development is closer to a fire station than 99.9% of this township. Lee Street is literally less than 800 feet down Hector Street from Station Avenue. So we can save some possible seconds of response time, a few times, what, a decade, to a development that is literally a few hundred feet from a fire station. We will daily endanger the thousands of people who use the Spring Mill train station, who cross Station Avenue to get to the Schuylkill River Trail, on the Schuylkill River Trail, and those who will use Station Avenue to access the Schuylkill River Trail, the new river trail, the boat launch.
1 minute.
Widening Washington Street from Lee Street to Station Avenue is a terrible ideal that will daily endanger pedestrians and bicyclists for no benefit. This recommendation from the township should be withdrawn. And have no doubt that the developer is in agreement at the last Planning Commission meeting where their representative spent most of his time refuting public comments. He was very quick to say, this idea didn't come from us, it was the township. They would be happy to not widen Washington Street from Lake to Station. So I ask that the Board of Supervisors, regardless of any other action to take on this development with all of the various comments that people have, vote to remove this requirement from this plan
and show your support for making this important area safer for all of the people who use it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Is there any more public comment? Come on up.
So my name's Tom Anley. I am a resident for about 20 years now in the township, and we actually left Manayunk because of the flooding and because of the all the overdevelopment that was going on there. We love living here, but it seems as if it's followed us out here. Unfortunately, we knew firsthand what happened because when the problems that the developer had created when we lived there came to fruition, they were long gone. They had made their money and they had moved on, and it was up to the residents who were stuck with the bill of trying to fix the problem. I already envision houses underwater. I already envision people asking questions. How was this ever approved? Who let this happen? And that's the question I think that's before the supervisors tonight. You have cover with the Planning Commission that said no, so there's no reason not to move forward. That's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Is there any other public comment? Come on up.
My name is Tom Gale. I'm a resident on Barron Hill Road. I'm not as learned and studied as everyone in this room who've spoken already about this idea, but it seems to me common sense has to win at some point, and hypocrisy has to lose. 20 years ago, the board was attacked and replaced because they were too supportive of developers. Is that the case now? So when do you draw the line? Because this makes absolutely no sense at every level. And I would plead to you that you do not do this. The other thing I would say to you is that the impact it's going to have throughout the entire community is going to be tremendous. I'm a huge supporter of private property rights. I'm a huge supporter of development and smart growth, but none of this seems to make sense. Years ago, when I did grading on my own property, 100 by 120 feet, boundary survey, topographical land survey. I didn't get any variances, just to put some dirt in my yard. You're reshaping the entire riverbed and that portion of Whitemarsh Township just to support this development. Why? What's going to win? Common sense or hypocrisy? Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Is there any more public comment? Is there anyone online, Craig? Any public comment online?
I do not see anyone with their hand up.
Okay. I'm going to ask you to please call the roll.
Yes, Ms. Tureen?
Yes.
Ms. Moy?
Yes.
Mr. McCusker?
Yes.
Chair Toll?
Yes. Motion passes. I'm going to move down to resolutions. Can I consider Resolution 2025-25, Land Development for 1001 Washington Street by HT 1001 Washington LLC?
So moved.
Second.
Is there anything further regarding that resolution? Or is that just a vote?
I'm sorry. The 2025-25?
Yep.
Yep, that just was passed, yes.
Okay. All right. Do I have a motion adopting Resolution 2025-26, approving the 2026 operating and capital budget?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any further information on that?
We've had several meetings on this, 2 workshop meetings, October 6th, October 13th, preliminary budget meeting on November 13th, and we're here tonight just for the final budget. Just highlights of it is a 0 tax increase. The tax rate will remain at 2.3633 mils. General fund budget is balanced at $22,304,694. Capital fund budget is $1,449,343, and total budget for all the funds totals $33,481,405.
Thank you, Craig. Is there any board comment?
Good.
No. Is there any public comment? All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. Do I have a motion adopting Resolution 2025-27, approving the 2026 interfund balance transfers in accordance with the 2026 adopted budget?
So moved.
Second.
Yes, this is a transfer of, shown in the budget of $1 million from the general fund to the capital reserve fund for 2026, and $100,000 from the general fund to capital equipment reserve fund. Both are shown in the budget as we just approved.
Thank you, Craig. Is there any board comment?
No.
Any public comment? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Resolution passes. I don't have that on here.
Okay.
I think he would have told me. Do I have a motion adopting Resolution 2025-28, approving the 2026 refuse service charges per contract in the amount of $664 per dwelling unit?
So moved.
Second.
Craig?
Yes, the trash bill will remain the same as 2025 and 2026 for $664 per dwelling unit.
Is there any board comment?
No.
Is there any public comment? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Resolution carries. Do I have a motion adopting Resolution 2025-29, approving the 2026 streetlight and fire hydrant assessment rates?
So moved.
Second.
Craig?
Streetlight and fire hydrant assessment, the rates for 2026 will remain the same as 2025, $38 per unit for streetlight assessment and $21 per unit for fire hydrant. No change.
Thank you, Craig. Is there any board comment?
No.
Any public comment? Come on up.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure this is the appropriate place, but lights is part of why I came tonight. I might be one of the few people, Corinne Dieterle, I live on Barron Hill Road, but I sometimes walk to the Spring Mill train station and take SEPTA into town, and sometimes even make my way up to New York and back again, and sometimes make my way to the airport and go to Europe and come back again, walking that way. And there have been more than a few times where I'm coming back and it's dark. If you leave the parking lot on Hector Street, from that exit to the light at Barron Hill and Cedar Grove and Hector, there is no light at all. It's completely pitch dark. I have come over and talked to the secretary of the township supervisor. I've called, I've written a letter. It's really dangerous. I don't know exactly how things work. I'm sure there's some interface between the township and the county there, but I don't really know. But I literally saw a man down on his knees with his cell phone, with his light on, trying to figure out how to negotiate the sidewalk, which is only on one side of the street. So it's really unsafe. And I'm willing to have my rates be increased in order to have greater public safety. And we need some kind of light from that parking lot to the light up at that intersection. It's completely, totally black. The sidewalk on the one side is very uneven. It's often broken. So that's my light input for tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do I have a motion adopting Resolution 2025-30, adopting the 2026 fee schedule as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion adopting Resolution 2025-31 to submit an application for an LSA grant in the amount of $988,129 for the statewide local share assessment grant program for stormwater pipe rehabilitation project in Whitemarsh Township?
So moved.
Second.
Would I turn this over to
That's
you,
me.
Krista? Thank
Yep.
you.
This resolution, if passed, would authorize Gilmore to submit a grant application to request $988,129, which would allow us to rehabilitate I don't have the linear footage, but a lot of piping by non-invasive means. So it's a lining that they pump into the pipe. They expand it and steam it, and it cures in place. We don't have to dig any roads up. We got this grant 2 years ago and completed a project, and it turned out really well and was successful.
Thank you, Krista. Is there any board comment? Is there any public comment? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion authorizing the advertisement of an ordinance amending the provisions of the Steep Slope Ordinance in both the zoning ordinance and subdivision and land development ordinance, as recommended by the Planning Commission?
So moved.
Second.
Charlie?
Thank you. This is a project that the Planning Commission has worked on with our representatives from Montgomery County Planning Commission. We've worked on it since the end of the summer. It would significantly amend our Steep Slope Conservation Overlay District. As you may know, there are many variance requests to the Zoning Hearing Board because of some of the features of this ordinance, to the point that we are seeing about 50% of our Zoning Hearing Board applications due to just this ordinance. So that was a clue that we needed to take a hard look at it. The Planning Commission has done that with the consultant. We have a draft ordinance that we're asking you to authorize for advertisement. It primarily amends the zoning ordinance. It also amends some complementary definitions in the subdivision and land development ordinance. But it has, I won't go into the entire ordinance. We can do that at the public hearing in more summary fashion, but there are three key things that you should be aware of that this ordinance would do. First of all, it changes the definition of what a steep slope is. Our steep slope started at 8%. Nobody else's steep slope started at 8%. The general rule, or the general, what we see in most of the municipalities in the county and the surrounding area is a 15% threshold for when a steep slope is defined as such. So that is the first change that was made. We also redefined the steep slope ratio ranges that determine maximum impervious coverage in all of the single-family residential districts. And that's the one feature, but those two features together are what is creating the majority of the cases that are going to the Zoning Hearing Board for very minor changes, including putting a shed in someone's backyard because they're over steep slope or over impervious coverage by a few feet. So this would change that. The other change that's significant is we are now defining 35% as a slope over which no disturbance can occur. Right now, we don't have that in the ordinance. We have certain disturbance limits depending upon the slope, but we don't have a slope at which we think we need to stop any disturbance. And in discussing it with Montgomery County and the Planning Commission, there was fairly unanimous feeling that we should have we should have a total prohibition on slopes of 35% or greater. So those are the three key features. There are a lot of minor things that go along with that, but that's essentially the ordinance that we would like to have you authorize for advertisement and hopefully to have a public hearing in January of 2026.
Thank you, Charlie. Is there any board comment?
No.
Is there any public comment? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a motion authorizing the advertisement of an ordinance adopting the 2021 IFC, International Fire Code, and 2021 Property Maintenance Code per the Pennsylvania Uniform Construction Code?
So moved.
Second.
I'm going to call up our Chief Fire Inspector. John? Come on up.
We're proposing the adoption of the International Fire Code, the 2021 edition, and all the appendices as it is being adopted through the Labor and Industry. The Department of Labor and Industry is getting around now to adopting the 2021 standard. We're currently using the 2018 standard. As a general rule, we're several years behind in the way that everything gets adopted. Not ideal, but the 2021 is necessary, obviously, to be in conformance with the Department of Labor and Industry standards. It's not horribly different than what we have now, but there are some differences, obviously.
Thank you, John. Are there any board comment or questions? Any public comment? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion approving the financials for November 2025 with expenditures totaling $2,555,405.73, payroll totaling $767,029.46, and pension plan expenditure in the amount of $2,702.54?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any board comment?
No.
Any public comment? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. I'm going to move on. We have an amended agenda. Do I have a motion authorizing the establishment of a separate financial account to be used strictly for any donations and proceeds of the sale of 14 Marple Lane to be restricted for improvements to the grounds, buildings, and programs associated with properties of 1 Germantown Pike and 4006 Butler Pike as recommended by the Abolition Hall Steering Committee?
So moved.
Second.
Craig, did you want to say anything additional?
This is just brought up at the Abolition Hall Steering Committee to make sure that any proceeds, whether donations or the sale of the one property, the one building on this property, all goes into an account strictly reserved for that property improvements. So it's not going into the general capital reserve fund or the general fund. That there's a separate line item and a separate account that we can pull from for future programming or improvements to the property.
Thank you, Craig. Is there any board comment?
No.
Any public comment? Sidell, come on up.
Sidell Zoe of Harts Ridge Road. I just want to make sure that the wording is precise and that it refers to any donations, period, from any source, in addition to the proceeds from the sale of Marple Lane. So
It says strictly for any donations and proceeds of the sale of 14 Marple Lane.
right, but so the grammar isn't quite precise. I just want to make sure that it's any donations as well as the proceeds from the sale of Marple Lane. That it's.
That's how I'm reading it.
Is that everyone's understanding, that if someone wanted, out of the blue, wanted to make a donation of $10,000 for improvements or programs, it would go into this fund?
Correct.
If someone
Okay.
wrote a
That's-
check and said this is for the Abolition Hall property, it would go into this fund.
And how will disbursements be managed from this fund? I mean, will it be based upon the recommendations of the committee?
Board of Supervisors? How will that work?
It would be a recommendation from the Abolition Hall Steering Committee to go to the Board of Supervisors.
Okay.
So ultimately, the Board of Supervisors.
And I would hope that there will be routine reporting on both the revenue and the expense side of this fund.
At the Abolition Hall
Publicly.
Steering Committee,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
All those in favor, please signify by saying, oh, Deb, sorry, I didn't see you there. Come on up.
I just want to agree with Sadell that the wording can be written to say donations related to the Marple Lane sale. So just make sure your language is incredibly clear. Any donations and proceeds from the sale. That the language is incredibly clear that donations are in perpetuity and the sale of Marple Lane. English can be, and you want to make sure that's precise.
Maybe just reverse it.
Yes.
First proceeds first and donations.
Yes.
Thank you for your comment. As I read it directly here, that's almost exactly as how it reads, and that certainly, I mean, from my perspective, that's how I take it. Thank you very much for your comments. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion approving the request from Barron Hill Volunteer Fire Company and recommended by Emergency Services Board to support a station number change from Station 29 to Station 32?
So moved.
Second.
Chris Schwartz, would you like to come up and share?
I apologize, I didn't know I was speaking. This is very simple. We had another agency reach out inquiring about if we'd be interested in giving up our number. 32 aligns with the municipality number. Our company has supported it unanimously to pursue this, and so has the Emergency Services Board. So we're just looking for your support to get the ball rolling with Montgomery County.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Is there any board comment?
No.
Any public comment? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. It's time for public comment. Is there any public comment? All right, I saw Deb's hand first, sorry. Then you, Tom.
A new topic. A quote from the 2006 Whitemarsh Township Open Space Plan Audit, Appendix A, page 107, Goals and Objectives, Audit Findings. This will have a reason. 54 acres of the silt basin property were purchased as a passive park with plans for a trail to be built through this property, helping to connect Lafayette Hill with Cedar Grove Park. An easement through Andorra Glen Apartments has been secured. The donation of Willow Lake Farm to the Wissahickon Valley Watershed Association of Broad Axe creates an opportunity, an important destination point for a future greenway and trail system as part of the township. An easement for a future trail between Westaway Drive and Whitemarsh Elementary, called the Kirby Trail, has been acquired. A trail easement was secured that connects the elementary schools with the library. Easement has been secured. The boards of supervisors in the past were planning ahead, purchasing easements for possible future benefit to the residents of Whitemarsh Township, acquiring easements when they were available, thinking ahead. The reason I bring this up is that we have the opportunity now to be like those past boards of supervisors, to purchase an easement that would preserve the possibility of creating an important, safe pedestrian connection. The pedestrian connection I'm talking about that would be between Ridge Pike and Germantown Pike. Today, moving between these is difficult. Consider that if you were walking with a stroller, had a child on a bike, or you were a senior wanting to go shop over at the market, or a baseball player trying to get safely to games at Miles Park. Would you enjoy going up Church Road or Crescent or Chestnut? No. The properties at 604 and 608 Germantown Pike back up to Messiah Methodist Church on Ridge Pike. The township could purchase a small easement on the rear of these properties that connects this development sidewalks to the rear of the property. The township could notify the church that is interested in purchasing an easement for pedestrian access to Ridge Pike, and that they, the church, can contact the township when and if they are interested. From there, we wait. We have an investment in the future. We've spent a small sum to preserve the possibility of a connection. Sometime in the future, the church may find that this is to their benefit. They may decide to build senior housing in the rear of the property and wish that the residents there had had access to the market. But boom, they do.
1 minute.
Or the church may find themselves in needs of funds or other possibilities where the sale of an easement is to their benefit. When that day comes, your investment in the future is realized, and the residents of Whitemarsh Township benefits from your actions. The Board of Supervisors today can make a small investment in the purchase of an easement on Germantown Pike
to preserve the possibility of a safe connectivity. I ask the Board of Supervisors to be visionary, to think of the future as those previous boards did who had purchased those easements for future benefit, and to talk to the owners of that property, the developers, to purchase a small easement in the back of the property from their sidewalk to the rear of the property to preserve the possibility of a Germantown to Ridge Pike safe pedestrian connection. Little easement, back of the property, from the back of their sidewalk to the back of the property, allows us to connect through the church if and when, in the future, the church thinks that's beneficial. So it'd be a small thing, an investment in the future.
Thank you, Deb.
Tom Dahl, Fairway Road. This is just an idea and something to think about for the supervisors, maybe even Craig, to take a look at. And that is, I don't know if you saw it or not, but Whitpain Township just implemented a traffic subcommittee of the Board of Supervisors, where they independently look at the traffic impact of all the development that's occurring within Whitpain, rather than having the traffic studies people look at it, because everybody tries to minimize the amount of traffic that there is. They're having an independent group of people look at the traffic impacts of all the development. It might be something for us to consider as we consider developing various parts of the township, because of course the developer is not going to want to, they're going to say that the traffic is minimal simply because they want to minimize any cost that they might have to pay to the township for road improvements and things like that, right? But if an independent board looks at it and says, oh, the traffic count's not 1,000 cars, that's 3,000 cars. The fee structure regarding that is completely different, right? So I think maybe we should consider something like that, given all the traffic and the congestion that's in our township on future development. Something to think about.
Thank you, Tom. Sidell.
Sidell Zoe of Harts Ridge Road. As has been referenced by several people, including myself, the role of the zoning hearing board with regard to developments, particularly along the river and in other sensitive areas, is really key. And although there have been some new appointments to the zoning hearing board, most recently there was one member who actually voted against the extension, the time extension for the project at 1001 Washington Street. I would say that the majority of the zoning hearing board seems unfamiliar with the vision and goals of the comprehensive plan as recently updated. And I think it's time to have a little workshop. They know the code, they know the zoning code, chapter 116, that's true, but they seem totally clueless when it comes to the broader vision of the comprehensive plan, what we're trying to achieve here, the sensitivity to environmental risk factors, the necessity of maintaining open space and preservation of habitat. So I'd like to suggest that the township have a workshop for zoning hearing board members, if at all possible, to require their participation and to help them understand the township's vision and the requirements of the comp plan update. Thank you.
Steve?
Yes, I'll be brief. I just wanted to speak in support of what Deb Harris is talking about. And I think, Tom, you're with an organized group that is trying to put forward the notion of land preservation in that particular area. And I just hope that you folks can be given the opportunity to make an organized presentation to the Board of Supervisors or whoever else might be relevant, just showing where all this stuff is. The other, I just wanted to reflect on something that Sidell said, which is that all boards of a particular zoning need to remember that we have a municipality's planning code that speaks of hardship or unreasonableness as the grounds for either a waiver of saldo or a zoning variance. And those things are supposed to be presented in writing with some detail, and I think it's important to try to get that back into the culture of the township a little bit more. And by the way, there was one accomplishment in that area 2 years ago, because now there is in Chapter 55, trees, there now is that language borrowed from the rest of Saldo that speaks about hardship and unreasonableness.
Thank you. You want to come up?
Corinne Dieterle, Barron Hill Road. I'm a member of the Sierra Club Zero Waste organization for the state of Pennsylvania, and we meet regularly, educating ourselves and our networks about possible things we can do. As a result of that, last March, I visited the site in Media. Media has town-wide, and has for a number of years, vegetable matter recycling, so that people can put in a separate bin their potato scraps or their orange peels or whatever, and they're picked up and they're composted, and then compost is returned to citizens. And so I visited the Media site to take in that operation, and then I went over and I visited the Lower Merion site, which is a different model, and I put together a report, and I sent it on the 7th of March to Representative Tureen, because I read that she was the point person for the environmental things. And I didn't hear anything back, so I resent it on the 25th, and I didn't hear anything back. And then I had a brief conversation with the township manager. Were you the township manager last March, Mr. McNally? Yeah. So we had a brief phone conversation about this, because I was frustrated that I wasn't hearing anything back. So I don't know what it takes to get discussion going, but this is being done all across the country. As I said, the town of Media does it as a town. The proposal that I made was that we implement what they do in Lower Merion, because it's much simpler and lower cost to implement. And the woman who is the environmental point person for Lower Merion said she was willing to come here for free and share her experience about how to implement the program. So I'm here to seek your advice on how to get this kind of discussion going of whether or not we want to do it. It seems to me that it keeps things out of the incinerator that don't belong there in the first place. It returns things to where they belong, which is the earth. And as somebody who's been composting for more than 50 years, and I even did it when I lived in West Philadelphia before I moved into Whitemarsh, it's really a simple operation, and it makes a lot of sense economically as well as ecologically. So any advice you have about to further this conversation so we could consider it as a township, I think makes sense.
So generally, when we have our workshop meetings, which are quarterly, we have different boards and commissions come when they have something to share and present. It just so happens that there's a member of the EAB behind you, and that's Deb Harris, and you may want to introduce yourself and talk more about what you're thinking about.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Is there any more public comment? Is there any public comment online?
I do not see anyone with their hand up.
All right. Before we move to board member comments, it is Fran's last meeting as a Board of Supervisors member. And Craig, I'm going to first ask you to do your presentation, and then as board members, we'll say a few words.
Yes, congratulations, Fran.
Well, thanks, Craig. I didn't expect this. Present away.
I reached out to Pennsylvania State Association of Township Supervisors, and the Executive Director, David Senko, has provided a letter and a certificate. I will read the letter to you. On behalf of Pennsylvania State Association of Township Supervisors, we extend our warmest congratulations and deepest gratitude for your dedicated service to the township. Your commitment to public service has been invaluable. Please accept the enclosed certificate as a small but heartfelt token of our sincere appreciation for your tireless efforts. With dedicated individuals like you, having served in Pennsylvania local governments, we can rest assured that the quality of township life will continue to survive and thrive as innovation meets tradition. We are immensely proud of our township officials and staff, and we especially recognize those of you who have consistently served the community year after year. We commend you for a job exceptionally well done. The residents of your township are fortunate to have benefited from your leadership and can take great pride in all that you have accomplished on their behalf. We recognize the sacrifices and hard work that come with serving the public, and your unwavering commitment sets a high standard for all who follow. All our very best to you in the future endeavors. David Sanko, Executive Director, and a certificate of service for you, Fran. Secondly, from the Board of Supervisors and the staff of Whitemarsh Township, a donation in the amount of $250 has been made to Norristown Hospitality Center, which you are very familiar with, in your honor and your name. So that's for your hard work and dedication of 8 years to Whitemarsh Township. So, thank you.
I'm going to open it up to the other supervisors if you want to say a few words.
I'll just say Fran is the newest member of the Whitemarsh Township Board of Supervisors. It was such an incredible learning opportunity to work with you. I mean, truly, you are the best of the best. You got a standing ovation from some of our most active constituents, which I think says it all. But truly, you walk the walk. You bring heart to everything you do. You lead with your heart, and you set the model for the rest of us. Truly, you have been there in the toughest of times, standing in front of the July 4th, really, spicy discussions there, taking it on personally and professionally. And to watch that and to walk beside you and learn with you has been an absolute privilege of a lifetime. So thank you for your leadership. You will have very hard shoes to fill, but we will do our best to carry on.
Wow.
Thank you.
I don't know who you're talking about. Thank you so much.
Patrice, did you want to say anything?
Yes, thanks, JC. Fran, I just want to say, congratulations on the end of your second term. It's been a pleasure for me to serve with you through my first term and through parts of, so it has been an honor to serve with you and an honor to have you as a leader. Your leadership as chair of the Board of Supervisors was awesome. And you set a great example for the rest of us, especially with respect to, getting back to residents and following up with folks on issues that they've presented. You will definitely be missed on this board. You're a key player. We're going to miss you, and we're looking forward to all the great things that you're going to do from here. Thanks so much, Fran, for being the best.
Thank you, Patrice. I appreciate that.
Unfortunately, Vince is out of town, so he will not be here to give comments. But Fran, what can I say? It's been 6 years I've been on this board with you. I've enjoyed every single minute. I've learned so much from you, and I've been really honored to serve with you. It's always been clear how much you love people, and it shows. All people, no matter what. And the way that you lead with compassion and grace and your commitment to this community is always at the forefront of everything you do. And I will miss you. We will all miss you. And I'm super grateful that I have you now as a very good friend. So I won't be saying goodbye. I'll just be saying goodbye that you're not sitting next to me anymore. But I don't know on any other situation that we would have become friends. I'm very grateful for you, for your leadership, and for your friendship. And I wish you all the best. I thank you for everything.
Thank you, JC. Well, I guess it's my turn. I've waited 8 years to actually address this audience and say goodbye, but it's never going to be goodbye. I love Whitemarsh. I've always loved living in Whitemarsh, and I feel extremely grateful to able to have the ability to live in Whitemarsh. It's been a great place to raise my family. If I wasn't on the Board of Supervisors, I probably wouldn't have bumped into a lot of people in this room, including the people on the board. And I've made some great friends. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about humility. I learned a lot about adversity. I learned that leadership is lonely. And tonight you guys got to witness how lonely that can be when everybody in the room comes up and goes against what your decision is. And it's very lonely. And you want to be on the other side, but you can't, because you have to be the last man standing. And I talk about this a lot, especially with my kids, that in leadership, you have to do the right thing based on all the knowledge that you have and the information given that's the best for the people, even if it's the unpopular decision. And it's hard. Doing hard things has become quite comfortable for me because of this position. And I'm really grateful because it brought up things in my professional career that I wouldn't have the guts to do. I'm very grateful to the residents of Whitemarsh Township for giving me this opportunity. I'm very grateful for our unbelievable staff, all the department heads, Craig, Sean's office, and you, John. I mean, I learned so much from everybody. Everybody's supportive. Everybody would talk to me in layman's terms about how to present something to the residents. And I'm grateful for the residents who would reach out to me personally and ask me to come over to check out a problem and see if I could help. I'm grateful for those opportunities. Thank you to everybody for coming out tonight. My next part of my career will be with the Barron Hill Fire Department. So I joined the fire department back in July, and I'm going through fire training, which has been very difficult, by the way. So anyway, that's the next thing I want to do for the township. So thank you all very much. I wish you all a great holiday season. And I'm sure I'll be seeing you at some meetings in the future on that side where I'll join Sidell and Tom against the board. So thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Fran.
Motion to adjourn.
I have a gift for you from the Board of Supervisors, but I left it in the room back here, so I can give it to you in a minute. But on that note, I'm going to announce that the board had executive sessions on November 20th and December 2nd and tonight on real estate, litigation, and personnel matters. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Good night, Whitemarsh.